Slay dragons, serve the kingdom. That is all one must do in order to find purpose in this life. Slay dragons and serve the kingdom. Stop overcomplicating it. This is the way.
This is the way.
For many years, I felt like my life was traveling in circles, like a downward spiral into meaninglessness. I guess I still sometimes battle with these feelings, but it's nowhere near what it was in my early 20s. And one thing that I have discovered in all my racing around the toilet bowl, and often winding up with my head inside of one, is the reason for a lot of the apathy and addiction in my life has been due to two things: a lack of challenge and an overindulgence in self-serving behavior. For over a decade, I had worked in a job that I was comfortable at. I was making decent money, but it never proved to be much of a challenge to my capacity for growth, ambition, talent, and adventure. The stakes were low and the consequences were not life and death. So beyond wrestling with the mental erosion of the daily grind and far more hours than the average 40-hour week, I've not really been faced with all that much excitement, difficulty, fear, or complex problem solving. Now, don't get me wrong. The ability to face Groundhog Day every day, 6 to 7 days a week, getting up to be at work at 5 a.m. before most people even get out of bed year after year after year, and not letting that crush your soul is a skill set all in itself. But it's never been enough for me. A stable job, a decent income, a mortgage, a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee Altitude Edition, success with women, and yet the equation of my life still added up to unfulfilled meaninglessness. It didn't make sense. At that time in my life, I struggled deeply with coping mechanisms and escapism, lots of video games and substance abuse, anything to shut my brain off for a few hours. My relationships were all over the place. I was unfaithful and uncommitted. Looking back, I think I even dated a few people that I knew that I didn't see a real future with, subconsciously on purpose, because that allowed me to remain unserious and uncommitted while conveniently blaming them for their bad habits and behaviors and shortcomings that made them not wifey material. I had women chasing a finish line that was never even there. And to be honest with you, that is a direct reflection of how my own life felt in the mirror. Striving and striving and striving, but the goalposts keep moving and moving and moving. I truly believe that the relationships that we choose are a reflection of us. As water reflects the face, so one's life reflects their heart. My life had no purpose. I felt like I was just pouring my life into the void. I kept taking and taking, but it was never enough. I found myself constantly chasing instant gratification behavior just to stay 2 steps ahead of the overwhelming feelings of depression, anxiety, and apathy. Thankfully, that was 6 years ago. Now, I won't go into the play-by-play of all the things that have transpired since then and that have led me here, as spilling the tea is not the point of this video. But what I will say is that after years of wandering the wilderness, I have realized one thing for sure: it is better to chase utility than utopia. Stop pursuing happiness, pursue purpose. Stop trying to use and instead make yourself useful. If you feel like you are useful, purpose will follow. If you feel useless, apathy will follow. This whole concept of purpose, in my experience, I found also resonated and aligned with the work of Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and the author of the best-selling book Man's Search for Meaning, which I highly recommend reading. It was one of the first books that I took on when I wanted to start turning my life around. And one of the key takeaways from Victor's work is crudely summarized as how people can withstand immense hardship if they believe that there is a purpose for their pain and hope for their lives. So it's for a lack of purpose and a lack of potency or ability for actions to have impact that causes the courage of men to fail and pushes them off the edge into apathy and despair. If you are an apathetic man, it is likely because you see yourself as a pathetic man. So stop choosing to be pathetic and take up the mantle of slaying dragons and serving the kingdom. And what I really mean by that is you must face your fears and make yourself useful to other people. If you can find ways to accomplish those two things, your life will begin to take on more meaning. Courage plus responsibility equals purpose.
What's 9 plus 10?
21.
When I first started taking steps into the unknown outside of my comfort zone and started trying to use my skill set to help and impact other people, it's what pulled me out of my nosedive, and I felt hope and power for the first time in my life. A couple of the big things that I did is I took a massive pay cut to quit the family business and work as a personal trainer. I faced my fears of public speaking and started sharing my poetry, something that I previously considered to be unacceptable and far too feminine. And suddenly, new doors just began to open, and my coping mechanisms and my anxiety and depression and apathy began to lose their grip on me. Now, don't get me wrong, I still wrestle with these parts of myself regularly, especially when my ego gets involved, but now I feel like I stand a fighting chance because you can't fight what you can't see. So awareness is this first step. And I realize that I've always wanted to make a difference, and a lot of what I have struggled with internally comes from feeling like I can't, or like I'm not doing enough, and on the more egocentric side, that I'm not receiving enough validation or material success to believe in my own potency. I also think that it's the paradox of choice and the astronomical levels of abundance in the modern world that has many of us in this chokehold of apathy. I can imagine that throughout most of history, a stronger sense of duty and purpose and community would have been more innate, especially in circumstances that existed closer to the edge of life and death. You didn't have to have much imagination or ambition or work ethic to find a sense of purpose. You just had to go outside and there would be dragons and sacrifice waiting for you. Purpose would have been thrust upon you by the struggles of life and death. If you didn't chop enough wood or hunt for enough food, you and your loved ones would freeze to death or starve. You had to be a functioning and participating member of your community. Whether you liked it or not, your very survival would have depended on it. But now, everything is just automated and instant. You can be completely isolated and just order your food online, etc., etc. We are so blessed that it can become a curse. And a lot of us really don't know how to do anything. You can't change a tire, you can't cook a meal from scratch, you don't have any useful, tangible skills that you can share and enrich others with. You are isolated, you aren't a contributing member to your kingdom. Maybe all you do is plug away at your hourly wage job that doesn't really care about you, and then spend all of your free time trying to escape from your life and cope with your lack of meaning. You're just another worker ant, a bug, a hamster on a wheel.
Usually when people ask how I'm doing, the real answer is I'm doing shitty. But I can't say I'm doing shitty because I don't even have a good reason to be doing shitty. So if I say I'm doing shitty, then they say, why? What's wrong? And I have to be like, I don't know, all of it.
And this is why narcissistic, hedonistic, materialistic, pornographic messaging is so addictive. It's the carrot being held out in front of the starving horse. It's instant gratification. It is self-gratification. It is selling you counterfeit ideas of success and importance and power and love into your state of isolation and disconnection. And you know something is counterfeit when it's never enough. I realized in my own life that no matter how much I was taking from myself, I didn't feel like I was enough, and I just needed more and more and more, always trying to fill the void of my own sense of inadequacy, which is something I still struggle with. But I found that it's only when I started giving more that I was finally able to tap into a stronger sense of self-worth and purpose. So I think that you need to have an honest conversation with yourself. Are you slaying dragons? Are you serving your kingdom? Or are you living in your comfort zone and avoiding any real responsibility? And all of our dragons will be unique. We are all afraid of different things, and all of our skill sets will be unique. And maybe your issue is that you haven't been working on your skill set and you don't have much value to offer to your kingdom.
I don't even have any good skills.
What do you mean?
You know, like nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills. Girls only want boyfriends who have great skills.
Build courage and competence and find a way to serve. And then purpose will be the byproduct of that.
If only it were that easy.
And for all of you turning up your nose to the idea of self-sacrifice and living in service to others because people just take advantage of you and you should just live for yourself and you only have one life to live, etc., etc., just consider that any of the greatest warriors, heroes, and icons who have been immortalized by their actions in both reality and fiction have done so through self-sacrifice. It's only when the hero becomes a part of something bigger than themselves and is willing to sacrifice themselves for others that they step into their purpose and potential, which flies directly in the face of our culture that glorifies and rewards narcissism and materialism above all else. We put people on pedestals who walk around trying to act like their life is a movie, but the real main characters are not the ones who make everything in their lives about themselves. The real main characters are the ones who make their lives about others. My father once told me that true success is measured by the depth and the scope at which you impact the hearts of others. Oh, and one more thing. On this road of life, never forget to find humor in the absurdity of it all. Be able to laugh at yourself and you'll never run out of things to laugh about. Don't spend so much of your energy investing in worry and stress and anxiety. Aim high, but don't take life so seriously because it doesn't take you seriously. Life isn't fair. It owes you nothing, and it doesn't give a shit about you. It's only the people in your life and the things that you are responsible for that make the pain of it all worthwhile.